8:47 p.m. That's the exact moment my husband decided to let me die. I know because I saw the red receipt. He read my text, 911, stroke, can't talk, help, and then he deleted it. While I lay paralyzed on my nursery floor, 7 months pregnant, unable to move or speak, my millionaire husband was at his mistress's birthday party, drinking champagne and cutting cake. For 7 hours, I waited for help that never came, because the man I trusted with my life had already planned my death. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about a serial killer who'd perfected his method over a decade. 2 dead wives before me, both ruled accidents. It's about forged insurance policies worth $5 million. It's about a man who systematically prevented me from getting medical care, gaslighted me into doubting my own symptoms, and then watched me die in real time through a text message. The only difference? I survived. And survival made me dangerous. What you're about to hear is the complete, unfiltered truth about how a read receipt became evidence in a murder trial. How I went from dying on my floor to putting my husband in prison for life. This story has everything: tech forensics, courtroom drama, shocking security footage, and the moment a perfect husband's mask finally shattered in front of the entire world. If this story grips you, and trust me it will, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me if you'd have seen the warning signs. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because this story saves lives. And subscribe, because the Reed receipt case changed domestic violence law forever, and you need to know why. Now, let me tell you exactly how my husband tried to get away with murder. Starting with the day I found the forged insurance policy, 8:47 p.m., I sent my husband a text that read, 911 stroke, can't talk, help. The red receipt appeared instantly. He saw it. I was 7 months pregnant. My right side was paralyzed. I couldn't speak. I was lying on my nursery floor, surrounded by tiny pink onesies and yellow blankets I'd been folding just minutes before. My millionaire husband read my message, deleted it, and went to his mistress's birthday party. He left me there for 7 hours. This is how Brett Harrison tried to murder me and our unborn baby, and he almost got away with it. My name is Emma Harrison. I'm 32 years old. I used to be an architect at one of Manhattan's top firms. I used to have a $3 million penthouse overlooking Central Park. I used to have a husband who kissed me goodbye every morning and told me he loved me. I used to believe I knew what love looked like. I was wrong about everything. The thing about being murdered slowly is that you don't realize it's happening. There's no gun to your head, no knife at your throat, just small moments that don't quite add up. A comment here, a dismissal there, a pattern you can't quite see until it's too late. Looking back now, I can trace the breadcrumbs. 6 months before the stroke, I was at dinner with my best friend Rachel when the first warning appeared. We were celebrating her promotion at the Children's Hospital, where she worked as a pediatric nurse. I remember reaching for my wine glass and missing it entirely, my hand overshooting by several inches. "Whoa, someone's had enough," Rachel joked, then stopped when she saw my face. "Emma, you okay?" "Just a headache," I said, pressing my fingers to my temple. "And my visions have been weird all day, like everything's slightly blurry on the right side." Rachel's expression changed immediately. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to that professional tone she used when she was worried. "Emma, those are stroke warning signs, especially the vision thing. You need to see a doctor." I laughed it off. "I'm 32 and healthy. I'm not having a stroke. Young people have strokes too, especially pregnant women." She grabbed my hand across the table. "Promise me you'll get checked out." I promised. I even mentioned it to Brett that night when I got home. He was in his home office reviewing quarterly reports for his tech company, Harrison Analytics. The glow from his dual monitors lit his face in harsh blue light. "Rachel thinks I should get checked out," I said from the doorway. "I had a headache today and some blurred vision." Brett didn't look up from his screens. "Rachel's not a doctor, babe. She's a pediatric nurse. Different thing. But she said, you've been stressed with the pregnancy." He finally turned to face me, his expression patient but firm. "Let's not waste money on unnecessary ER visits. You know our deductible is $5,000. "I guess you're right," I said, already doubting myself. "It was probably just pregnancy stuff. Do you trust me? Or do you trust Rachel's Google diagnosis?" He smiled when he said it, but something in his tone made me feel foolish for even bringing it up. I trusted him. Of course I trusted him. He was my husband. He'd gone to Harvard Business School. He was worth $20 million. He knew about important things like health insurance, deductibles, and medical costs. Rachel was just being paranoid. That was the first time Brett talked me out of seeking medical care. It wouldn't be the last. 4 months ago, I drove myself to the ER during my lunch break. The headache had been so severe that morning I'd vomited twice, and my right hand kept tingling and going numb. I dropped my coffee mug, watched it shatter on our marble kitchen floor, and finally admitted something was wrong. The ER doctor was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and gray streaks in her dark hair. She took my symptoms seriously, asked detailed questions, and ordered a CT scan. These are TIA warning signs, she explained, making notes on her tablet. Transischemic attacks, mini strokes. They're often precursors to major strokes. We need to run comprehensive tests. I felt vindicated and terrified in equal measure. I texted Brett. At hospital, they want to do tests. He called immediately. Emma, what's going on? What hospital? I explained about the headache, the numbness, the doctor's concerns. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Emma, listen to me. His voice was tight, controlled. They're trying to run up bills. It's a classic ER scam. They order expensive tests for symptoms that could be explained by a dozen cheaper things. But the doctor seemed really concerned. Of course she did. That's how they justify the bills. I could hear the frustration creeping into his tone. You know our insurance has that $5,000 deductible. Do you want to blow through that on tests that will probably come back normal? No, but come home. We'll schedule an appointment with your regular OB. If there's really something wrong, she'll catch it. That's what the monthly checkups are for. The ER doctor returned before I could respond. Mrs. Harrison, we're ready to take you for the CT scan. I looked at her kind face, then at my phone, then back at her. Actually, I think I'm going to follow up with my regular doctor instead. Her expression shifted from concern to frustration. Mrs. Harrison, I strongly advise against leaving without completing the workup. Your symptoms are serious. I understand, but my husband thinks... I stopped hearing how that sounded. I think it's probably just pregnancy-related. I'll follow up with my OB. She made me sign a form. Against medical advice was stamped at the top in red letters. Her disappointment was palpable as she watched me gather my purse and leave. I drove home feeling simultaneously relieved about the money and anxious about the symptoms. Brett was right, wasn't he? Doctors did overtest. ERs did run up bills. I was probably just being paranoid. The headache lasted 3 more days. The numbness came and went. I never made that OB appointment Brett suggested. 3 months ago, the second ER visit. I was grocery shopping and when the left side of my face went numb. I tried to smile at the cashier and realized only half my mouth was moving. The cashier's eyes widened. Ma'am, are you okay? Should I call someone? A good Samaritan in line behind me called 911. The ambulance arrived before I could protest. This time, Brett got to the hospital before I was even registered. I don't know how he did it. I remember seeing him stride through the automatic doors like he owned the place. His expensive suit and confident bearing making nurses step aside. He found me in a waiting room chair, one hand pressed to my numb face. My wife has anxiety, he told the triage nurse before I could speak. The pregnancy has her paranoid about every little symptom. But my face, I tried to say, but the words came out slurred. Brett sat beside me, putting his hand on my shoulder. The grip looked gentle to anyone watching, but I could feel the pressure, the warning. Baby, you're scaring yourself. The stress isn't good for our daughter. I bit my lip while eating. Remember, at lunch? His voice was so confident, so certain. You're forgetting things. Pregnancy brain, totally normal. Had I bitten my lip? I couldn't remember. The morning felt fuzzy now. Maybe he was right. When the doctor finally saw us, Brett was ready. She's been very forgetful lately. Is that concerning? The doctor, a young resident who looked exhausted, glanced between us. It can be normal in pregnancy. Memory issues, brain fog. See, babe? Brett squeezed my shoulder again. Let's go home. I let him lead me out. I signed another against medical advice form. The young resident looked troubled but didn't stop us. In the car, Brett was quiet for several blocks. Then he said, "Emma, I'm worried about you. This health anxiety is getting worse. Maybe we should find you a therapist." "I'm not anxious," I protested weakly. "Something's really wrong." "Then why didn't the doctors find anything?" He kept his eyes on the road, his voice maddeningly reasonable. "This is the second time you've convinced yourself you're having some medical emergency, and the doctors have found nothing serious enough to even keep you for observation." I didn't have an answer for that. The doctors hadn't found anything because we'd left before they could run tests, but somehow that detail got lost in the conversation. 2 months ago, the third ER visit. I woke up at 3 a.m., unable to form words properly. The terror was immediate and overwhelming. I tried to wake Brett, but he was sleeping like the dead. I managed to stumble to the bathroom, looking at my reflection in the mirror. My face looked normal now, but when I tried to say help, it came out as help, thick and wrong. This time I tried to call 911 myself. I got as far as dialing before Brett appeared in the bathroom doorway. "What are you doing?" He took the phone from my hand gently. "Emma, it's 3 a.m. Ambulances cost $2,000. I'll drive you." By the time we got to the ER, my speech was a little better. Not normal, but understandable. The doctor on duty reviewed my chart with increasing concern. "Mrs. Harrison, this is your third visit in 4 months with stroke symptoms. You need to see a neurologist immediately." She was younger than the other doctors, maybe early 30s, with dark eyes that saw too much. "There's a stroke specialist on call. I want you admitted overnight for monitoring." "Yes," I said immediately. "Please, something's wrong." Brett pulled the doctor aside. I could hear them through the curtain. "Doctor, I need to be honest with you. Emma's been struggling with health anxiety since she got pregnant. She's been to 3 different ERs in 4 months. Her OB says everything's fine. I think this is psychological." "Mr. Harrison, the symptoms she's describing are real. I'm not doubting you saw symptoms. I'm saying they might be psychosomatic, stress-induced." His voice dropped lower, but I strained to hear. "What if we put her through invasive testing and it shows nothing? We've traumatized her and the baby for no reason." There was a long pause. "Let me talk to my attending." While we waited, Brett sat beside my bed. "Babe, I love you, but you're scaring yourself. You're on WebMD diagnosing yourself with brain cancer." "But what if something's really wrong?" Tears ran down my face. "Then your OB will catch it. That's what the monthly checkups are for. You just had one last week, remember? She said everything looked perfect." And she had said that. My blood pressure was fine, the baby was fine, all my tests were normal. Maybe I really was creating symptoms through anxiety. I left again, signed another form. The young doctor watched me go with an expression that haunted me later. She knew. Somehow she knew. The pattern should have been obvious. It's so clear now, looking back with the benefit of hindsight in survival. But when you're living inside it, when the person dismissing your reality is someone you've promised to love and trust, you can't see the forest for the trees. You just keep thinking, he must be right. He loves me. He wouldn't let anything bad happen to me. You think that right up until the moment he does. 2 months before the stroke, I found the policy. I wasn't snooping. That's what I told myself at the time, though maybe some part of me knew to look. Brett worked from home most Tuesdays, but that particular Tuesday, he'd gone to the office for an important board meeting. I was 7 months pregnant, moving slow, nesting hard. I decided to organize his home office as a surprise. Brett was meticulous about most things, but his desk drawers were a chaotic mess of receipts, business cards, and random papers. The insurance policy was in the third drawer down, tucked between old tax returns. $5 million. My name, my signature, dated 3 months ago. My hands started shaking before my brain even processed why. I knew every signature I'd ever made. In college, I'd taken a calligraphy class. I'd spent hours perfecting my handwriting, especially my signature. The loop on my capital E was very specific, large and flowing. The tail on my N in Harrison curved down and to the left. This signature was close, very close. But the E loop was too small. The end tail curved down and to the right. Someone had forged my signature. Someone who knew my handwriting well enough to get it almost perfect. Someone who had access to my signature for reference. Someone like my husband. I sat in Brett's desk chair, policy in my shaking hands, and tried to remember. Had I signed something 3 months ago? We'd signed so many papers when I got pregnant. Prenatal testing consent forms, hospital pre-registration, birth plan documents. Had there been insurance papers mixed in? I wanted to believe there had been. I wanted to believe this was a misunderstanding, that I'd signed it while distracted and just didn't remember. Pregnancy brain was real. I forgot things all the time now. But that signature, that wrong, almost right signature. The garage door opener hummed. Brett was home 4 hours early. I should have confronted him right then. But some instinct, the same instinct that had kept humans alive for millennia when predators were near, told me to be careful, to hide what I'd found, to pretend everything was normal. I slipped the policy back into the drawer exactly as I'd found it. I was washing my hands in the kitchen when Brett walked in. "Hey, babe." He kissed my cheek, his hand going automatically to my pregnant belly. "How are my girls?" "Good. Your meeting ended early?" "Wrapped up ahead of schedule." He opened the refrigerator, pulling out a beer. "What have you been up to?" "Just organizing, nesting, you know." I kept my voice light, normal. "I was thinking about cleaning your office, but I got tired." "Don't worry about my office. I've got a system." He smiled at me over his beer bottle. "Why don't you rest? You've been doing too much." That night in bed, I couldn't sleep. Brett was out cold beside me, snoring softly. I kept thinking about that policy, $5 million. Who needed $5 million in life insurance? More importantly, why would Brett forge my signature? The next morning, while Brett was in the shower, I did something I'd never done before. I picked up his phone. He didn't have a passcode. He'd always said he had nothing to hide from me. The irony of that would hit me later. I opened his text messages with Marcus Daniels, his business partner and best friend since college. The most recent exchange was from a week ago. "Brett, hypothetically, if someone increased their spouse's life insurance, what's the waiting period before payout?" Marcus, "Dude, that's dark." "Why?" Brett, "Just asking, investor questions." I scrolled up, found another message from 2 months ago. Brett, "If someone had a stroke during pregnancy, that's natural causes, right? Insurance pays out." Marcus, "Brett, what the fuck are you planning?" Brett, "Nothing, just researching." My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. The shower cut off. I set the phone back exactly where it had been, screen off, angle perfect. Brett emerged in a cloud of steam, towel around his waist. "Morning, beautiful. Sleep okay?" "Fine," I lied. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a detective in my own marriage. I started noticing things I'd been too trusting to see before. Brett's work trips that didn't show up on his electronic calendar. Charges on our joint credit card for restaurants I'd never been to. A receipt I found in his suit pocket for champagne at a place called the Pinnacle Room. And the blonde woman who appeared in the background of a photo Brett's colleague had posted on Instagram from a client dinner. Brett's hand wasn't visible in the frame, but I knew his watch. It was on the wrist of the hand resting on the blonde woman's shoulder. Her name was Amber Sinclair, 26 years old, beautiful in that effortless way that made me feel huge and ungainly in my pregnant body. Her Instagram was public, full of luxury restaurants and cocktails and artfully filtered selfies. And one photo from 4 months ago, tagged at the Pinnacle Room, where Brett's hand was very clearly visible, wrapped around her waist. I should have confronted him. I should have packed my bags. I should have called a lawyer. Instead, I did something smarter and more desperate. I ordered a nanny cam. I used my emergency credit card, the one Brett didn't know about, the one my mother had insisted I keep just in case. I had it delivered to Rachel's house. 2 weeks before the stroke, I hid the camera in a teddy bear on the nursery shelf, the one Brett had bought for our daughter, positioning it at the perfect angle to see the whole room. The camera uploaded everything to a secret email account. Cloud storage. Even if something happened to the physical camera, the footage would exist somewhere Brett couldn't touch it. I hated myself for it. What kind of wife spies on her husband? What kind of paranoid, anxiety-ridden crazy person sets up surveillance in her own home? But every time I started to take the camera down, I thought about that forged signature, those text messages, that blonde woman's Instagram, and I left the camera where it was. The last normal day was a Tuesday, August 15th. I remember because it was supposed to be special. Brett's 38th birthday was the next day, and I'd planned a surprise dinner at his favorite steakhouse. I'd even made a reservation for just the two of us, a rare date night before the baby came. That afternoon, I had another episode. I was in the kitchen making myself a snack when my right hand refused to grip the knife properly. I watched, disconnected, as my fingers fumbled and the knife clattered into the sink. Then my vision started to narrow on the right side, like I was looking through a shrinking tunnel. I knew what this was. I'd Googled my symptoms obsessively over the past 4 months. These were stroke warnings, TIAs. My body was screaming at me that something catastrophic was coming. I picked up my phone to call Brett, to beg him one more time to take this seriously, to tell him I was scared and something was really, genuinely wrong. But then I thought about the insurance policy, the text messages, the blonde woman, and I wondered if I called him right now and told him I was having symptoms again, what would he say? Would he rush home? Or would he talk me down again, convince me I was being dramatic, wait for whatever was coming to happen when he had an alibi? I set the phone down. The symptoms faded after 20 minutes. My hand worked again. My vision cleared. I went back to folding laundry in the nursery. Pink onesies, yellow blankets, tiny socks that would fit on feet smaller than my palm. I imagined my daughter wearing them, imagined her growing up, going to school, getting married someday. I imagined her at my funeral, too young to remember me, being raised by Brett and maybe that blonde woman. The thought should have been absurd, paranoid, crazy, but it wasn't. At 7:30 that evening, I heard Brett in our bedroom, the shower running. When he emerged 20 minutes later, he was dressed in dark jeans and a button-down shirt I'd bought him for Christmas. Not work clothes, date clothes. "Babe, I'm heading out," he called toward the nursery. "Emergency investor meeting." I came to the doorway, a onesie still in my hands. "It's 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. Silicon Valley time zones, conference call from the car." He was already moving toward the garage, car keys in hand. "Brett." He turned back, crossed the distance between us in 3 quick strides, and kissed me. His lips were warm, familiar. "Don't wait up. Love you." "Love you too," I said automatically. He smiled, that same smile that had made me fall in love with him 5 years ago at a mutual friend's party, and walked away. I heard the garage door open, his Tesla pulling out, the garage door closing. I stood in the nursery doorway, hand on my pregnant belly, and felt my daughter kick. 3 strong kicks, like she was trying to tell me something. "It's okay," I whispered to her. "Daddy's just going to work." But I was thinking about the champagne receipt, the blonde woman, the forged insurance policy, and I was thinking something is about to happen. I just didn't know I had 38 minutes until my life ended. The first symptom arrived at 8:32 p.m. I checked the time later when I could still think clearly enough to remember checking my phone. I was still in the nursery, folding the endless pile of baby clothes. My mother had gone overboard at every baby store in Ohio, shipping boxes of pink and yellow and white onesies, as if our daughter would need 40 outfit changes a day. I'd been folding for 20 minutes, arranging them by size in the dresser we'd assembled last week. My right hand felt strange, heavy, like it had fallen asleep, that pins and needles sensation, except not quite. More like the signals from my brain were arriving delayed, traveling through molasses. I flexed my fingers. They moved, but slowly, disconnected, like watching someone else's hand through a lag on a video call. A onesie slipped from my grip. I tried to catch it, but my hand was too slow. It drifted to the floor. I bent to pick it up. My fingers wouldn't close around the fabric properly. "Come on," I muttered, frustrated. I was tired, that was all. 7 months pregnant, I'd been on my feet too long. I just needed to sit down. I walked to the bathroom, legs working fine, and looked in the mirror. "Smile," I told my reflection. My left side smiled. My right side didn't move. The entire right side of my face was slack, frozen, Wrong. Terror hit me like ice water. This wasn't a TIA. This wasn't a warning. This was it. This was the big one, the stroke that all those mini strokes had been building toward. I tried to say help, but it came out thick and slurred and barely recognizable as language. My phone. I needed my phone. I'd left it on the changing table. I stumbled back to the nursery, right leg starting to drag now, and grabbed my phone with my left hand, right hand dangling useless at my side. 911. Call 911. I pressed the buttons, put the phone to my ear. 911, what's your emergency? I tried to speak. Struka, pregnant, help. Ma'am, I can't understand you. Are you having trouble breathing? Are you choking? No, Struka, can't talk. Okay, I hear you're having trouble speaking. Can you text me your address? My address. Yes, Brett would know the address. But first, text the operator. I tried to type with my left hand, clumsy, shaking. 2947 PNE AV 29. Autocorrect turned it into gibberish. 2947 Pint Ace Apron 29. Ma'am, I'm having trouble locating that address. Can you try again? I couldn't. My vision was starting to blur. The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the changing table to stay upright. Ma'am, are you still there? I hung up, not out of logic, but out of desperation and panic in the crushing realization that I couldn't make this woman understand me. But Brett could. Brett would know what to do. Brett would call them back, explain where I was, get help here fast. I opened our text thread with my left hand. Each letter took forever. 911 STROK EMCANTTOLKPENLP. 8:47 p.m. I hit send. The message showed delivered immediately. Then seconds later, read 8:47 p.m. He saw it, Brett saw it. Relief flooded through me so intensely I started crying. Help was coming. Brett had read my text. He was calling 911 right now. He was probably already in his car, racing home. The ambulance would be here any minute. I slid down the changing table to the floor, my right side completely useless now. The nursery carpet was soft against my cheek. Baby was kicking, hard, frantic movements like she knew something was wrong. I put my left hand on my belly. It's okay, baby girl. Daddy saw the message. Help is coming. We're going to be fine. I counted her kicks to stay conscious. 1, 2, 3, 4. I listened for sirens. None came. That's okay, I told myself. They're on their way. It takes time. Traffic. They have to get here from wherever they are. Brett's probably stuck in traffic too, trying to get home. At 8:55, I checked my phone. No response from Brett yet. Maybe he was on the phone with 911, giving them all the details. Or maybe he was driving and couldn't text back safely. I tried to stay calm, tried to keep breathing steadily. My daughter needed oxygen. I had to stay conscious for her. The kicks were getting weaker. No, I whispered. No, no, baby, stay with me. Help is coming. 9:15 p.m. Still no sirens, no Brett, no text back. Maybe he hadn't seen the read receipt. Maybe it was a glitch. Sometimes texts showed as read when they weren't really read, right? Technology wasn't perfect, but I'd seen it. Read 8:47 p, clear as day. 9:30 p, I was fading in and out. The room kept going dark, then light, then dark again, like someone was flipping a switch. I thought about crawling to the door, unlocking it so the paramedics could get in when they arrived. But I couldn't move, couldn't coordinate my limbs. My body had become a prison. My phone was just out of reach. I dropped it when I slid down to the floor. I could see the screen lighting up periodically with notifications, but I couldn't move my arm to grab it. At 10 p.m., I stopped trying to stay conscious. I was so tired. My baby's kicks had stopped. Or maybe I just couldn't feel them anymore. I couldn't tell where my body ended and the floor began. My last coherent thought was, he's coming. He promised. He always comes home. Then darkness. I don't remember the next 5 hours. The doctors told me later that I was in and out of consciousness, my brain swelling, my daughter in distress. Every minute that passed without treatment, more brain cells died. More damage became permanent. If I'd gotten help within 3 hours, the doctor said later, I would have made a full recovery. The clot-busting drugs would have worked. I would have walked out of that hospital with maybe some temporary weakness, some slurred speech that would resolve with therapy. Instead, I lay on that nursery floor for 7 hours while my husband drank champagne. What I didn't know, what I would only learn later through security footage and witness testimony, was what Brett was doing while I died. At 8:47 p.m., Brett Harrison was at the Pinnacle Room in Tribeca. It's an exclusive event space on the 20th floor of a converted warehouse, all floor-to-ceiling windows and exposed brick and Edison bulbs. You need a membership to book it. Brett had one. The party was for Amber Sinclair's 26th birthday. 20 guests, champagne towers, a custom cake from that bakery in Soho that charges $15 a cupcake. Amber wore a white dress that showed off her tan shoulders and long blonde hair. She looked happy, young, nothing like a woman who was destroying a marriage. Though to be fair, maybe she didn't know she was destroying anything. Brett had told her I was his crazy ex-wife, according to her later testimony. He'd said we were separated, divorce almost final. He'd been lying to her almost as comprehensively as he'd been lying to me. Security footage from the Pinnacle Room, which Marcus Daniels would eventually obtain and turn over to prosecutors, shows Brett at 8:45 p.m., champagne flute in hand, laughing at something Amber's friend was saying. He's relaxed, comfortable, one hand in his pocket, every inch the successful tech CEO, the charming date, the man who has everything under control. At 8:47, his phone buzzes. The camera catches him pulling it from his pocket, glancing at the screen. His face changes for just a second. Something dark flashes across his features, irritation maybe, or calculation, then smooths back to neutral. He shows the phone to Amber. On the silent security footage, you can't hear what he says, but Amber's mouth moves. Is she okay? Brett's mouth moves in response. She's fine. She does this for attention. He pockets the phone. Amber touches his arm, says something else. The angle of the camera makes it impossible to read her lips, but her expression is concerned. Brett shakes his head, smiles reassuringly, and raises his champagne glass. To you, his lips say clearly. Happy birthday. They clink glasses and drink. At 8:48 p.m., 1 minute after reading my text, 1 minute after I told him I was having a stroke and couldn't speak, Brett Harrison opened his phone again. Marcus Daniels' forensic analysis would later show exactly what Brett did. He opened settings. He logged into my iCloud account. He knew my password. Of course he did. We'd shared passwords the way married couples do, trading phones without thought, the casualness of absolute trust. He found my text thread with him. He deleted my message. 911, stroke can't talk help. He found my attempted text to 911. He deleted that too. Then he put his phone away and went back to the party. At 9:12 p.m., the security camera captures him with his arm around Amber, both of them laughing at something. At 9:47, he's helping her cut the massive birthday cake, their hands together on the knife like a wedding photo. At 10:23 p.m., Amber posts to her Instagram story, a photo of the two of them, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. The caption, "Best 26th birthday ever. Thank you to my amazing man for this perfect night." She tags the location, the Pinnacle Room. The post gets 47 likes in 3 minutes. One of Amber's friends comments, "Wait, is he married?" Amber deletes the comment 18 seconds later. At 11:30 p.m., the party winds down, guests leave in clusters, calling Ubers, bundling into cabs. Brett and Amber are among the last to leave. The security footage shows him walking her to her car in the parking garage, kissing her goodnight, watching her drive away before getting into his own Tesla. He doesn't go home. According to his GPS, which prosecutors would later subpoena, Brett drove to a 24-hour diner in Chelsea. He sat at the counter for an hour drinking coffee, scrolling through his phone, establishing an alibi, the prosecutor would later argue, making sure there were witnesses who saw him somewhere public, somewhere that proved he wasn't home. At 1:15 a.m., he drove to Marcus Daniels' apartment in the East Village. Marcus testified later that Brett showed up unannounced, Said he'd been working late and didn't want to wake me. Marcus, half asleep and not thinking clearly, let him crash on the couch. Did he seem concerned about his wife? The prosecutor asked. No, Marcus said quietly. He seemed fine, normal. He fell asleep in like 5 minutes. At 3:47 a.m., Brett left Marcus's apartment and drove home. The garage camera, which Brett didn't know our building had installed 6 months earlier, shows his Tesla pulling in at 3:49. He walked into our apartment. I know this because the nanny cam I'd hidden in the nursery captured what happened next. Brett's footsteps on the hardwood, coming closer. A pause outside the nursery door. Emma? His voice cautious. Babe? He pushed the door open. The camera angle was perfect. It captured everything. Me on the floor, unconscious. Right side slack, drool on my cheek. Phone just out of reach, screen dark. Baby clothes scattered around me like accusatory evidence. Brett stood in the doorway for 11 seconds. The camera captured his face clearly. He wasn't shocked. He wasn't horrified. He was assessing, calculating. Then he backed out of the room and closed the door. The camera didn't capture where he went next, but the building's hallway cameras did. He went to our bedroom, stripped off his date clothes, set his alarm for 6:30 a.m., got into bed, and went to sleep. For 3.5 hours, while I lay dying 15 feet away, my husband slept peacefully in our bed. At 7:23 a.m., Rachel Miller, my best friend, the woman who'd been warning me for months that something was wrong, used her spare key to let herself into the apartment. She was bringing bagels and coffee, planning to surprise me with breakfast before she started her shift at the children's hospital. Emma, she called. You up? I brought food. Silence. She walked through the apartment. Kitchen empty. Bedroom. Brett asleep, alone. That was weird. Where was I? She noticed my purse on the floor in the hallway. The strap was torn like it had been dropped. That was wrong. I never left my purse on the floor. Emma? More urgency now. She heard a sound from the nursery. Faint, barely audible. A weak moan. Rachel pushed open the door and found me. Later, she would tell the police, I thought she was dead. She was gray. Her lips were blue. I couldn't get her to respond. Rachel is a pediatric nurse. She'd been trained for emergencies. She dropped to her knees beside me, checking for a pulse. Found one, weak, thready, barely there. Pulled out her phone. 911, I need an ambulance now. Her voice on the recording is steady, professional, terrified. My friend is pregnant, 7 months. She's had a stroke. She's conscious but can't speak. Right side paralysis. She's been down for a pause while she looked around, trying to piece together the timeline. I don't know how long, hours, I think. Where is her husband? She looked up. Brett was standing in the doorway in his boxers, hair messy from sleep. Brett, thank God, she needs... What happened? He was putting on a show, Emma would realize later. The concerned husband, woken from sleep by an emergency. She okay? Is the baby okay? She's had a stroke. Rachel's professional home cracked. Why didn't you call 911? Like, where were you? I was sleeping. I just got home late from work. The dispatcher's voice cut through. Ma'am, the ambulance is 3 minutes away. Try to keep her conscious. Rachel turned back to me, talking to keep me awake. Emma, honey, stay with me. Help is coming. You're going to be fine. But she was looking at my phone on the floor. The screen had lit up with a notification. Rachel could see the text thread with Brett. My message, 911, stroke can't talk help. Sent, 8:47 p.m. Read, 8:47 p.m. Below it, nothing. No response. Not until his text at 6:45 that morning. Stayed at Marcus's place after work drinks. Home soon. Rachel's face went white. She looked from the phone to Brett to me. Emma, she whispered. He read it. He saw it, and he didn't come home. I was barely conscious, but I heard her. I tried to nod, but couldn't move. The ambulance arrived 7 minutes later. Paramedics rushed in with equipment, checking vitals, asking questions. How long has she been down? Rachel, voice shaking, at least 8 hours, maybe longer. Jesus, we need to move now. They were loading me onto the stretcher when one of the paramedics checked my vital signs and swore, "Baby's in distress, heart rate's erratic. She needs an emergency C-section." Brett was riding with me in the ambulance, holding my left hand, his face a perfect mask of concern. "It's going to be okay, baby. I'm right here. I'm not leaving you." Rachel climbed in too. "I'm coming with her." "There's not enough room," the paramedic started. "Then make room." Rachel's voice had steel in it. "I'm not leaving her alone." She stared at Brett as she said it. Even drugged and dying, I felt the tension between them. At the hospital, everything happened fast. Emergency C-section, they put me under. When I woke up hours later, I was in intensive care, right side paralyzed, speech gone, daughter born 2 months early. And my husband was there playing the role of his life. The first week after the stroke was a fog of pain and confusion and machines beeping and nurses coming and going. I couldn't speak. Every attempt came out as garbled syllables that made frustrated tears leak from my eyes. I couldn't move my right side, couldn't feel it. It was like half my body belonged to someone else. Lily, our daughter born at 28 weeks, 3 pounds 4 ounces, was in the NICU. I hadn't even seen her yet. They'd shown me a photo, a tiny red thing covered in wires and tubes, barely recognizable as human. My baby. And through it all, Brett was there. He slept in the chair beside my bed every night, his neck at an uncomfortable angle, his hand holding mine, my left hand, the one that still worked. He brought me flowers that I couldn't appreciate because I could barely focus my eyes. He talked to the doctors, asked careful questions, took notes on a small notepad he kept in his shirt pocket. He was, to every nurse and doctor and visitor, the perfect husband. On the second day when I tried to tell the neurologist what happened, Brett was there. "Doctor," I managed, the word coming out twisted but recognizable. "Text. Brett to read." The doctor leaned closer, trying to understand. "You texted Brett when you had the stroke?" "Yes, hey, read 8 first. She's confused, Brett said, his voice patient, sorrowful. "The stroke has affected her memory. I didn't see any text until morning." "But read 8 for... Honey, you're mixing up times. I know this is scary." The doctor said memory problems are normal with stroke. The neurologist nodded sympathetically. "It's very common for stroke patients to have confused memories of the event itself. The brain was oxygen deprived. Sometimes it fills in gaps with false information." "Not false." I tried to insist, but the words came out wrong. "Not fall." "It's okay, Emma." Brett squeezed my hand. "Don't strain yourself. Just rest." He looked at the doctor with weary, worried eyes. "She's been very stressed about this. She keeps insisting I saw some text message, but my phone was dead that night. I was working late at my partner's, and when I got home and found her, God, if I just checked on her before I went to sleep." His voice broke convincingly. The doctor patted his shoulder. On the third day, my mother arrived from Ohio. Susan Taylor, 62, a retired elementary school teacher who'd raised me to believe the best in people. She took one look at me in the hospital bed and burst into tears. Brett stood and gave her his chair. "I'm so glad you're here. Emma needs her mother." Susan hugged him. "Thank God you were there for her. I just wish I'd been there when it happened." Brett's performance was flawless. I'll never forgive myself for being away. I tried to tell my mother, "Mom, please, he read text." "What's she saying?" Susan looked at Brett. "She thinks I saw a text message and ignored it. She's confused about the timeline. The doctor said it's normal." "Oh, honey," my mother took my hand. "You've been through such trauma. Your brain is just trying to make sense of what happened." "No." But the protest came out as, "No," and I started crying out of frustration. "Don't cry, sweetie. You're going to be okay. You're strong. You'll get through this." She believed him. My own mother believed him over me. By day 5, I'd given up trying to explain. Every attempt made me look more confused, more brain damaged, more unreliable. Brett had an answer for everything, delivered with perfect, concerned husband sincerity. The hospital staff loved him. Your husband is amazing, my day nurse told me. He hasn't left your side. Most husbands can't handle this level of caregiving. Brett brought the nurse coffee one morning and she blushed. Mr. Harrison, you're so thoughtful. It's the least I can do, he said. Emma's been through hell. I need to be here for her. On day 6, they let me visit Lily in the NICU. Brett wheeled me down in a wheelchair because I couldn't walk yet. My daughter was so tiny in her incubator, tubes in her nose and mouth, electrodes on her tiny chest. She looked like a baby bird, helpless and fragile. She's a fighter, the NICU nurse said, just like her mama. I couldn't hold her, couldn't even touch her without medical supervision. But I could look, and I cried watching her tiny chest rise and fall with the help of a machine. Brett put his hand on my shoulder. She's going to be fine. We're all going to be fine. He posted a photo on Instagram that day, me in the wheelchair looking at Lily through the incubator glass. He'd taken it from behind, so you couldn't see my drooping face or twisted posture. The caption, "Please pray for my girls. Emma's fighting hard. Baby Lily is so strong. Stroke survivor, #NICU, pray for us. 2,400 likes, 300 comments. You're an amazing husband. She's so lucky to have you. Praying for your beautiful family. This is what real love looks like." I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab everyone by their shoulders and shake them and tell them they were wrong, wrong, wrong. This wasn't love. This was performance. This was a man who'd left me to die playing the role of devoted husband. But I couldn't speak, couldn't make anyone understand. And the more I tried, the more everyone, including my own mother, looked at me with patient pity, like I was a confused child who didn't understand what was real. On day 7, Rachel came to visit. Brett was in the cafeteria getting food. The moment she walked into my room, I started crying. "Emma, oh Emma." She pulled her chair close to my bed, took my hand. "I know. I saw the text. I took pictures of your phone before Brett could see it." Relief crashed through me. Someone believed me. Someone saw the truth. Rachel pulled out her phone, showed me the screenshot she'd taken. My text to Brett at 8:47 p.m. The red receipt, time-stamped and undeniable. "He read," I managed. "Yes, he read it. I know he did." Rachel's voice was fierce, angry. "I'm going to prove it. I'm going to find proof he left you to die." "Careful," I warned, the word barely recognizable. "Don't worry about me. Worry about yourself. Get stronger. We're going to need you to testify." But getting stronger wasn't as simple as Rachel made it sound. The doctors explained that I'd had a massive ischemic stroke. The lack of blood flow had killed significant portions of my brain tissue. The damage was permanent. "You'll need extensive physical therapy," the rehabilitation doctor told me, "and speech therapy. Your right side may never fully recover." "Never?" My mother asked, her voice small. "There's always some hope for improvement, but Mrs. Harrison waited too long to receive treatment. If she'd gotten help within 3 hours, the outcome would have been very different." Brett sitting in the corner. "She waited 7 hours?" "Yes, the damage accumulated over time. Every minute without treatment, more brain cells died." Brett put his face in his hands. "If only I'd been home. If only I'd checked on her." Perfect, believable, devastated. I watched him from my hospital bed and realized something terrifying. I was trapped. Trapped in a body that didn't work. Trapped in a marriage to a man who tried to kill me. Trapped by everyone's belief in his performance. And the scariest part was how good he was at it. How naturally the lies came. How easily everyone believed him. Even I had believed him once. For years, I believed every word he said, trusted him with my life. And that trust had nearly killed me. On day 10, something shifted. I could see it in Brett's eyes when he looked at me. The performance was getting harder to maintain. The devoted husband act was wearing thin around the edges. "Emma," he said one afternoon when we were alone, "I know you think I saw that text, but I didn't. My phone was dead. The red receipt must have been a glitch." I tried to shake my head, but the movement was weak, barely visible. "You have to let this go," he continued, his voice dropping lower. You're making yourself look unstable. The doctors think you're having paranoid delusions. Even your mother thinks you're confused. Not confussed. Yes, you are. And you need to stop. For Lily's sake. He leaned closer. If you keep making these accusations, if you keep trying to tell people I abandoned you, I'll have to take steps to protect our daughter from your instability. The threat was clear. Stop talking about what really happened, or lose Lily. I stopped trying to tell my story. I nodded when Brett spoke. I smiled weakly when visitors praised what an amazing husband he was. I played the role of confused stroke victim who was lucky to have such a devoted partner. And inside, I screamed. On day 14, my mother pulled me aside. Well, as aside as you can get in a hospital room. Emma, honey, I need to ask you something. Are you absolutely certain about this text message? Yes. Because Brett said, Brett, my mother flinched. Honey, that's a terrible thing to say about your husband. He's been here every single day. He's barely left your side. Performance. What? I tried again, clearer. Performance. Acting. Emma. My mother's voice was stern now, disappointed. Your brain was damaged. The doctor said your memory might not be reliable. Don't you think it's possible you're wrong? I looked at her, my mother, who taught me to read and tie my shoes and drive a car, who'd held me through every heartbreak and celebrated every success, who was supposed to believe me no matter what. And I saw that she didn't. She believed Brett. I know it's hard to accept, Susan continued, gentler now. But sometimes our brains trick us, especially after trauma. Maybe it's easier to believe Brett saw the text and ignored it than to accept that this was just bad luck, a terrible coincidence. Not luck, I whispered. But she wasn't listening anymore. That night, alone in my hospital room, I cried myself to sleep. Brett had gone home to take care of some things at the apartment. He'd kissed my forehead before leaving, a gesture that made my skin crawl. I dreamed about the nursery floor, about counting my daughter's kicks, about watching my phone screen light up at that red receipt and feeling relief flood through me. Help is coming, I'd thought. He's coming. But he hadn't. He'd deleted the evidence and gone to a party, and now he was winning. Everyone believed him. Everyone thought I was the confused one, the paranoid one, the unreliable narrator of my own attempted murder. I woke up at 3 a.m. to a text message from Brett. Sorry I left. Needed to get some sleep in a real bed. See you tomorrow. Love you. I stared at those two words. Love you. Once upon a time, they would have made me feel safe, cherished, protected. Now they felt like a threat. On day 15, Rachel came back with proof. She waited until Brett left for a board meeting. At least that's what he told the nurses. Rachel arrived 20 minutes later, laptop bag over her shoulder, looking like she hadn't slept in days. I've been digging, she said without preamble, closing my hospital room door and pulling the privacy curtain. And Emma, I found something. She opened her laptop, turned it toward me. Your phone backed up to iCloud that night. Everything, including screenshots. On the screen, my text to Brett. 911 stroke can't talk help. Sent 8:47 p.m. Read 8:47 p.m. But look at this. Rachel opened a different window. This is your phone now, the text thread with Brett. The same conversation, but different. My text was there, but no read receipt, just delivered. He edited it, Rachel said. After you were admitted, he had access to your phone. He changed the screenshot, altered the metadata, but he didn't know about the cloud backup. Prof, I managed. Yes, proof. But there's more. She pulled up a map. Find my friend's location history. You shared locations with Brett, remember? I nodded. We turned it on years ago, back when sharing locations felt romantic instead of sinister. You didn't know he turned off his sharing 5 months ago, but the historical data is still in the backup. She zoomed in on August 15th. Your location at 8:47 p.m., home. Brett's location at 8:47 p.m., the Pinnacle Room, Tribeca. She pulled up a third window. Instagram, Amber Sinclair's account. Birthday party photos from that night. Look at the timestamps. Photos of Amber blowing out candles, 8:55 p.m. Amber with Brett spreads arm around her. 9:12 p.m. Group shot with Brett in the background. 9:47 p.m. Brett and Amber cutting cake together. 10:23 p.m. He was at her party, Rachel said quietly, for hours while you were dying. I started crying, not from sadness, from relief. Someone believed me. Someone had proof. Emma, I need to tell you something else. Rachel's voice was gentle but firm. Brett's been married before. Twice, she pulled up newspaper articles. First wife, Jennifer Harrison, née Cooper. Married 2012, died 2014. Fell down the stairs at 8 months pregnant. Ruled an accident. Another article. Second wife, Michelle Harrison, née Rodriguez. Married 2015, died 2018. Overdosed on sleeping pills. Ruled suicide. Both had life insurance policies Brett had taken out months before they died. $3 million for Jennifer, $4 million for Michelle. My stomach turned. He killed. I think so. I can't prove it yet. But the pattern, Rachel's hands were shaking. Emma, you're supposed to be the third, but you survived. The door opened. Brett stood in the doorway, take out coffee in one hand. Rachel, I didn't know you were visiting today. His voice was pleasant, but his eyes were cold. How long had he been standing there? What had he heard? I was just leaving, Rachel said, closing her laptop. Stay. Brett's smile didn't reach his eyes. I'm glad Emma has such a good friend. She needs all the support she can get during her recovery. I'm sure she does, Rachel said evenly, especially since the stroke was so preventable. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. What do you mean? Brett's voice remained pleasant, but there was an edge now. I mean, if Emma had gotten treatment within 3 hours, she'd be fine. Instead, she went 7 hours. Why do you think that happens, Brett? Because I wasn't home. If I'd been there. But you were home. Rachel stood up, laptop bag on her shoulder. At 3:47 a.m., building security cameras don't lie. Brett's mask slipped for just a second. Pure rage flashed across his face before he smoothed it away. I'm not sure what you're implying, but I don't appreciate your tone. Emma had a stroke. It was a tragedy. If you're trying to blame me, I'm not trying to do anything except protect my best friend. Rachel walked to the door, paused beside Brett. And I will. Whatever it takes. She left. Brett stood in the doorway for a long moment staring after her. When he finally turned back to me, his expression was unreadable. Emma, we need to talk about Rachel. No. She's not helping your recovery. She's putting paranoid thoughts in your head, making you doubt reality. Right. No, she's wrong and she's dangerous. Brett pulled his chair close to my bed, took my hand. The gesture looked tender to anyone watching, but his grip was too tight. I'm your husband. I love you. Everything I do is to protect you and Lily. Lair. I'm not, and I'll prove it to you. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling my lawyer. We're filing for an emergency psychiatric evaluation. What? The doctors agree you're showing signs of paranoid delusions, false memories, confusion about what's real. His voice was so reasonable, so concerned. I think you need professional help for Lily's safety. No, please. But he was already dialing. This is Brett Harrison. I need to speak with someone about my wife's mental health crisis. That afternoon, a social worker visited my room, middle-aged woman with a clipboard and sympathetic eyes. Mrs. Harrison, I understand you've been making some concerning statements about your husband. He left me, Dee. Your husband is very worried about you. He says you've been accusing him of seeing a text message and choosing not to help you. He died. Mrs. Harrison, your medical team has noted confusion and memory problems consistent with your stroke. Is it possible you're misremembering events? No. I understand this is frustrating, but your husband has requested a custody evaluation. Until we can determine that you're mentally stable, visits with your daughter will need to be supervised. The room tilted. What? It's temporary, just until the psychiatric evaluation is complete. It's for Lily's protection. No, me, Bobby. Brett in the corner. Emma, please calm down. This is exactly what I'm worried about. These outbursts aren't healthy. This isn't an outburst, the social worker said gently. This is a mother's fear. Mrs. Harrison, I know this is scary, but if you cooperate with the evaluation, we can sort this out quickly. After she left, I looked at Brett with new eyes. He just weaponized my brain damage against me, used my stroke, the stroke he'd caused, to paint me as unstable. I'm sorry, he said, not sounding sorry at all, but I have to think about Lily. If you're not well, you died this. I did what I had to do to protect our daughter. He stood up, collected his things. I'm going to stay at a hotel for a few days, give you space to work on your recovery, but I'll be back for the custody hearing. He kissed my forehead, the same gesture that used to make me feel loved, and left. I was alone in my hospital bed, paralyzed, slurred speech, accused of being mentally unstable, about to lose custody of my daughter. Brett was winning. That night, I almost gave up. The nurse had left pain medication on my bedside table. 30 pills, a month's supply. I looked at them for a long time, thinking how easy it would be. How much easier than fighting. Then my phone buzzed, a text from Rachel. Don't give up. I'm not giving up on you. I set the pills down. The next morning, a man I'd never met arrived at my hospital room. Marcus Daniels, 40 years old, dark circles under his eyes, looking like he'd been carrying a heavy weight for too long. Mrs. Harrison, I'm Brett's business partner. We need to talk. Marcus didn't sit down. He paced my hospital room like a caged animal, laptop bag clutched in both hands. I should have come sooner, he said. Weeks ago, months ago, but I was a coward. Who are you? Marcus Daniels. Brett and I went to college together, started Harrison Analytics together. He's my best friend. A bitter laugh. Was my best friend. He finally stopped pacing, pulled the chair close to my bed. My sister died 3 years ago. Domestic violence. Her husband prevented her from getting medical help when she had chest pains. Heart attack. She died at home while he was at work. He claimed he didn't know she was sick. Marcus's hands were shaking. I didn't see the signs. Didn't realize what he was doing until it was too late. And when I saw what Brett did to you, his voice broke. It was like watching my sister die all over again. Brett, did you say she'd kill me? I know, I have proof. He opened his laptop, angled it so I could see. Brett has been asking me questions for months about insurance, about medical crises, about what happens if someone has a stroke during pregnancy. He showed me text messages. Brett, hypothetically, if someone increased their spouse's life insurance, what's the waiting period before payout? Marcus, dude, that's dark. Why? Brett, just asking investor questions. Another message dated 2 months before my stroke. Brett, if someone had a stroke during pregnancy, that's natural causes, right? Insurance pays out. Marcus, Brett, what the fuck are you planning? Brett, nothing, just researching. I should have gone to the police then, Marcus said, but Brett had dirt on me. Insider trading we both did back in 2019. He threatened to pin it all on me if I ever talked. But yesterday, Brett came to me with new questions. About Amber, about increasing her life insurance, about what happens if something goes wrong during her pregnancy. Marcus looked at me with haunted eyes. He's going to do it again. That's what he does. He finds vulnerable women, marries them, insures them, and waits for an opportunity. He pulled up more evidence. Brett's been married before twice. I did some digging after I got suspicious. The same articles Rachel had found. Jennifer dead from a fall, Michelle dead from an overdose, both pregnant, both heavily insured. No one connected the dots because different states, different names. Jennifer kept her maiden name professionally. Michelle took Brett's name. The police in each jurisdiction saw isolated incidents. But it's a pattern. Serial killer. I think so. And I'm terrified I helped him. All those questions I answered. All the times I gave him advice without questioning why he was asking. Marcus put his head in his hands. I enabled a monster. He looked up at me. But I'm not going to enable him anymore. I have evidence. Emails, texts, security footage from the Pinnacle room that night. I can prove Brett was at Amber's party when you texted him. I can prove he saw the message and stayed. Was why now? Because I can't watch another woman die. And because Brett just asked me about increasing Amber's life insurance to 10 million. Marcus's voice went flat. She's 7 months pregnant now. Same as you were. He pulled up security footage on his laptop. I filmed this off the screen at the Pinnacle Room. They're a client of ours, so I have access to their systems. The video showed Brett at the party, checking his phone at 8:47 p.m. His face, irritation, crossing his features before smoothing away, showing the phone to Amber, pocketing it, raising his champagne glass. I have phone records too. Brett logged into your iCloud account at 8:48 p.m., deleted your text to him and your attempted 911 text. Who? I'm a tech forensic analyst. It's what I do for the company. I can see every device, every login, every deletion. He pulled up logs that meant nothing to me but clearly meant something to him. Brett accessed your account remotely and deleted evidence of your emergency. That's not just negligence. That's attempted murder. I started crying. Relief, grief, hope, terror, all flooding through me at once. I'm going to the police, Marcus said. Today. I'm giving them everything. The texts, the videos, the forensic evidence. And I'm testifying against Brett, even if it means I go to jail for the insider trading. Why? Because my sister's name was Lisa, and when she died, I promised I'd never let another woman down. I broke that promise with you, but I'm keeping it now. He started to pack up his laptop, then paused. Mrs. Harrison, Emma, I need you to know something. Brett's going to fight this. He's got money, lawyers, and he's very good at playing the victim. But I'm not going to let him win. The door burst open. Rachel stood there, my mother behind her. Emma, I heard about the custody thing. Rachel stopped when she saw Marcus. Who are you? Marcus Daniels, Brett's business partner. And I'm about to become his worst nightmare. Rachel's eyes went wide. You have evidence? Yes, everything, and I'm willing to testify. Oh, thank God. Rachel sank into another chair. I've been digging too. I have the location data, the Instagram post, the original screenshots from Emma's phone backup. I have the phone logs showing he deleted the texts remotely. I have building security showing he came home at 3:47 a.m. I have surveillance video from the Pinnacle Room showing him at the party. They looked at each other, then at me. We can prove it, Rachel said. All of it. My mother was crying. Emma, I'm so sorry. I didn't believe you. I thought you were confused, but if there's evidence, Marcus said grimly. Enough to put Brett away for attempted murder, and enough to reopen investigations into his previous wife's deaths. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling my lawyer first, then the police. Mrs. Harrison, you're going to need a good attorney. The best I can afford to hire for you, and someone who specializes in, I'll do it. We all turned. A woman stood in the doorway, late 40s, black, wearing a power suit and carrying a leather briefcase. She had the kind of presence that made everyone pay attention. Rebecca Stone, she said, walking in like she owned the room. I'm a defense attorney specializing in domestic violence cases. I saw the news story about your hospital ban. Mrs. Harrison, I know what really happened, and I want to represent you. We can't afford, my mother started. Pro bono, I don't take cases for money when it's this important. Rebecca set her briefcase down. I've been taking down abusive men for 20 years. Your husband is exactly the kind of monster I specialize in destroying. She pulled out a card, handed it to Marcus. You're the tech forensic analyst? Yes. Good. I'm going to need detailed reports on every piece of digital evidence. Time-stamped, verified, admissible in court. Can you do that? Absolutely, then Rebecca turned to Rachel. You're the best friend who found her? Yes. I'll need your testimony. Everything you saw that morning, the phone, the text thread, the timing, and I'll need those photos you took. You've got them. Rebecca finally looked at me. Mrs. Harrison, I'm going to be direct with you. Your husband is very good at what he does. He's going to have expensive lawyers. He's going to play the victim. He's going to try to paint you as an unstable woman making false accusations against a devoted husband. But we're going to prove otherwise, with forensic evidence, witness testimony, and the pattern of his previous wives. We're going to show that Brett Harrison is a predator who has been perfecting his method for over a decade. She pulled out a legal pad. Now, tell me everything and don't leave anything out. Over the next 3 hours, I told my story. Rachel filled in the gaps I couldn't articulate with my slurred speech. Marcus provided technical details. My mother cried and apologized and promised to testify about how Brett had manipulated her into doubting me. By the time Rebecca closed her legal pad, I had a team. A lawyer, a forensic analyst, a best friend, and a mother who finally believed me. We're going to file charges, Rebecca said. Attempted murder, insurance fraud, forgery, and filing false police reports. I'm also recommending the DA reopen investigations into Jennifer and Michelle Harrison's deaths. How long? I managed to ask. How long until trial? 6 months, maybe? How long until he's arrested? Tomorrow. She stood up, collected her things. Mrs. Harrison, your husband tried to kill you. He nearly succeeded, but you survived. And now we're going to make sure he never gets the chance to do this to another woman. After everyone left, I sat alone in my hospital bed and cried. Not from sadness or fear, from something that felt almost like hope. Brett thought he'd won, thought he'd gotten away with it, thought everyone believed his performance. But he'd made a mistake. He'd left me alive. And I was done playing the confused victim. Brett was arrested the next day at his board meeting. I wasn't there. I was still in the hospital, still doing physical therapy, still learning to walk again. But Rebecca called me immediately after, her voice electric with satisfaction. We got him, executed the warrant in front of 40 people. He tried to maintain his composure, but the cuffs don't lie. She sent me a photo someone had leaked to the press. Brett in handcuffs, face frozen in shock, being led out of his own conference room by 2 police detectives. The headline, Tech Millionaire Arrested for Attempted Murder of Pregnant Wife. Within an hour, it was everywhere. News websites, Twitter, Reddit, Instagram. The story people couldn't stop talking about. Wealthy CEO, beautiful wife, stroke, mistress's birthday party. The read receipt that proved he saw her dying plea and chose champagne instead. Public opinion turned vicious and immediate. The company's stock dropped 60% in one trading day. The board held an emergency meeting and voted to remove Brett as CEO. His face was scrubbed from the company website within hours. Amber deleted all her social media accounts. Every photo, every post, every trace of her relationship with Brett, gone. But the internet never forgets. Screenshots circulated, the birthday party photos with their timestamps, her pregnancy announcement, the comments from friends asking, wait, isn't he married? Someone created a subreddit, r/read receipt murder. Within 24 hours, it had 50,000 members dissecting every detail of the case. Amateur sleuths tracked down information on Brett's previous wives, found their obituaries, their insurance payouts, the suspicious circumstances of their deaths. This is actually a serial killer, one highly upvoted comment read. He's been doing this for 10 years. Emma Harrison is his only surviving victim. The DA's office announced they were reopening investigations into Jennifer and Michelle Harrison's deaths. New evidence has come to light suggesting these deaths may not have been accidents. Brett's bail hearing was set for 48 hours after his arrest. Rebecca warned me he'd probably get bail. He was wealthy, had no criminal record, wasn't a flight risk. She was wrong. The prosecutor presented evidence that Brett had recently applied for a passport renewal and booked a one-way ticket to the Cayman Islands under a different name. He'd transferred $2 million to an offshore account the day before his arrest. Flight risk is an understatement, Your Honor, the prosecutor said. Mr. Harrison was preparing to flee the country. The judge denied bail. Brett would stay in jail until trial. I watched the bail hearing via video link from my hospital bed. Watched Brett's expensive lawyer argue that his client was innocent, a victim of circumstantial evidence, and a wife with brain damage. Mrs. Harrison suffered a severe stroke, the defense attorney said. Her memory is unreliable. Her accusations are the result of confusion and, frankly, the manipulations of people around her who have their own agendas. The prosecutor stood up. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence video surveillance from the Pinnacle Room, showing Mr. Harrison reading his wife's text message and then showing it to his girlfriend with the comment, quote, Emma's being dramatic again. This was captured on security footage with audio. The courtroom went silent. Even Brett's lawyer looked stunned. Additionally, the prosecutor continued, phone records show Mr. Harrison remotely accessed his wife's iCloud account at 8:48 p.m. and deleted both her texts to him and her attempted 911 text. This was not an accident or a misunderstanding. This was deliberate, calculated, attempted murder. The judge looked at Brett with undisguised disgust. Bail denied. The defendant is remanded to custody pending trial. Brett exploded, jumped to his feet. This is bullshit. She's lying. They're all lying. You can't do this to me. Bailiff removed the defendant. It took 3 bailiffs to restrain him. Brett fought, screamed, hurled accusations. Emma, you bitch! This is your fault. You ruined everything. The video feed cut off, but the damage was done. Brett's mask had finally shattered in front of cameras, reporters, the whole world. That night, the video of his outburst went viral, 6 million views in 12 hours. Comments flooded in, and he claims she's unstable. This is the perfect husband everyone was defending. Hope he rots in prison. Those poor women he killed before Emma. 3 days later, I was discharged from the hospital. Not to my apartment. Brett had changed the locks, and his lawyer was fighting to keep it in the divorce proceedings. Instead, I went to my mother's rental house in Queens. It was small, cramped, nothing like the penthouse. But it was mine. Safe. Lily was still in the NICU. She'd be there for another month at least. But I could visit her now, without supervision, without Brett hovering. I could hold my daughter, finally, and tell her in my slurred, broken speech that Mommy was here and everything would be okay. Rachel came over every day after her shift. Marcus visited twice a week, bringing evidence, updates, reassurance. My mother cooked and fussed and apologized every single day for not believing me. I should have known, she said for the 100th time. I should have trusted you. You believe now, I managed. That's enough. Physical therapy was brutal. Speech therapy was worse. Every day, struggling to make my mouth form words properly, my hand grip objects, my legs support my weight. Progress was measured in millimeters. But I was alive, and I was free from Brett. The divorce papers came 2 weeks after his arrest. Brett wanted full custody of Lily, 0 assets for me, citing my mental instability and inability to care for a child. Rebecca laughed when she read them. He's in jail for trying to murder you and he wants custody? Let him try. The custody hearing was brief. The judge looked at the evidence. Attempted murder charges, video footage, phone records, and terminated Brett's parental rights permanently. Mr. Harrison, you endangered your wife and unborn daughter through deliberate inaction. You do not deserve the privilege of parenthood. All parental rights are hereby terminated. You will have no contact with the child. Ever. Brett, via video from jail, you can't do this. She's my daughter. No, the judge said coldly. She's Mrs. Harrison's daughter. You're simply the biological father, and that connection has been legally severed. I cried in the courtroom, not from sadness, from relief. Lily was safe. Brett could never touch her. 3 months after the stroke, I gave my first interview. A journalist from a major news outlet wanted to tell my story. Rebecca advised me to do it. Public pressure helps in cases like these. I was terrified. My speech was still slurred. My face still drooped slightly on the right side. I looked nothing like the confident architect I'd been before. But I did it anyway. Tell me what happened the night of August 15th, the journalist asked gently. I told her everything. The nursery floor, the text, the red receipt, the 7 hours of waiting. Why do you think your husband did this? Money, I said slowly. Leave insurance, 5 million. And you believe he's done this before? Tweez, his other weaves, booth dead. The interview aired on a Sunday night. 20 million viewers. The next day, my phone, which Rachel had set up with voice-to-text to make communication easier, flooded with messages. Support, belief, rage on my behalf. 3 women came forward claiming they'd dated Brett and experienced similar patterns of medical gaslighting. 2 of his college girlfriends reported he'd tried to isolate them from doctors when they were sick. The case against him grew stronger every day. Amber Sinclair reached out through her lawyer. She wanted to testify. In exchange, she wanted immunity. My client was deceived, her lawyer said. Mr. Harrison told her Mrs. Harrison was his ex-wife, that they were divorced, that Mrs. Harrison was stalking him. Ms. Sinclair believed she was in a legitimate relationship. Rebecca negotiated. Amber would testify about Brett's behavior the night of my stroke, about comments he'd made about his crazy ex-wife, about the pattern of control and manipulation she'd experienced in their relationship. In exchange, no charges for her role in my attempted murder. She'd been a victim too, the prosecutor agreed. Maybe not as directly as me, but a victim nonetheless. The trial was set for 6 months after the arrest. March 10th. I used those 6 months to get stronger. Physical therapy 5 times a week, speech therapy 4 times a week, occupational therapy to relearn how to do basic tasks with one fully functional hand. I also started a nonprofit, Read the Receipt Foundation, education and resources for medical abuse victims, partnered with hospitals to create screening protocols for partners who prevent medical care. Rachel helped me run it. Marcus donated $2 million. We hired staff, created training programs, launched a hotline. Women called every day with stories like mine. My husband won't let me go to the doctor. My boyfriend says I'm overreacting about chest pains. My partner keeps canceling my therapy appointments. We helped them, got them to safe doctors, connected them with lawyers. Sometimes we saved their lives. It didn't bring back the person I used to be, didn't fix my paralyzed arm or slurred speech, but it gave me purpose, and it made Brett's attempted murder mean something. The trial began on a cold March morning. I wore a navy blue dress my mother had bought me, something professional but not too formal. My right arm was in a brace, my speech still slurred but much clearer after months of therapy. Brett was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit and shackles. He looked like he'd aged 10 years. Gray streaking his hair, weight loss making his face gaunt, the confidence that had once defined him completely gone. Our eyes met across the courtroom. For just a second, I saw him calculate whether he could still manipulate me, still convince me I was wrong. Then he saw something in my face that made him look away first. I was done being his victim. The prosecution's opening statement was devastating. Brett Harrison is a predator. He's been perfecting his method for over a decade. Find a vulnerable woman, marry her, insure her, create conditions for an accident, collect payout, repeat. Emma Harrison survived. Jennifer Harrison and Michelle Harrison did not. This is not a case of a troubled marriage or a miscommunication. This is attempted murder, methodical and calculated. The defense tried to paint me as unreliable. Emma Harrison suffered a severe stroke. Her brain was damaged. Her memories are not to be trusted. The prosecution will show you text messages and timestamps and security footage, but what they can't show you is what was in my client's mind that night. Brett Harrison made mistakes. He didn't respond fast enough. He should have checked on his wife. But making mistakes isn't the same as attempting murder. The first week was technical testimony. Phone forensic experts explaining how Brett remotely deleted my texts. Location data specialists showing his movements that night. Medical experts describing how stroke damage works, how every minute without treatment kills brain cells. The jury listened carefully, taking notes. Several looked nauseated when the medical examiner explained exactly what 7 hours of untreated stroke does to brain tissue. The second week brought the video evidence. The courtroom screen showed nanny cam footage from my nursery, me folding clothes, Brett calling out, "Emergency investor meeting," me alone. Timestamp, 8:15 p.m. Then Ring doorbell footage, repeating Brett's car leaving. Timestamp, 8:30 p.m. Then me on the nursery floor, trying to text, slumping against the changing table, lying motionless while the clock in the corner of the frame ticked forward. 9 o'clock p.m., 10 o'clock p.m., 11 o'clock p.m. 2 jurors were crying. One man in the back row had his hand over his mouth. Then the Pinnacle Room security footage. Brett at the party, laughing, drinking, checking his phone at 8:47 p.m. The tech forensic analyst testified. You can see here, Mr. Harrison pulls out his phone. His facial expression changes slightly. Irritation, not concern. He shows the phone to Ms. Sinclair. Based on video-enhanced audio, he says, Emma's being dramatic again. Miss Sinclair asks, is she okay? Mr. Harrison responds, she's fine. She does this for attention. He then pockets the phone and stays at the party. The prosecution froze the frame on Brett's face. His expression was casual, annoyed, dismissive, not the face of a man whose wife was dying. At 8:48 p.m., the analyst continued, phone records show Mr. Harrison logged into Mrs. Harrison's iCloud account from his device and deleted 2 messages. Her text to him and her attempted text to 911 emergency services. The defense attorney objected, Your Honor, we dispute the interpretation of these phone logs. Objection overruled. The witness is a certified forensic analyst. He may continue. More footage. Brett staying at the party until 11:30 p.m., driving to a diner, then to Marcus's apartment. Mr. Harrison did not return home until 3:47 a.m., the prosecutor said. Building security cameras show his arrival. He went directly to the bedroom and went to sleep. The nanny cam shows he briefly opened the nursery door at 3:51 a.m., saw his wife on the floor, and closed the door. He did not call 911. He did not wake her. He went to bed. Gasps from the gallery. Even the judge looked disturbed. On day 10, Marcus testified, he looked smaller on the witness stand, shoulders hunched, clearly uncomfortable. But his voice was steady as he described Brett's questions about insurance, medical emergencies. What happened if someone died during pregnancy? When did you first suspect Mr. Harrison was planning something? The prosecutor asked. 4 months before the stroke. He asked me how long someone could survive a stroke without treatment. Then he asked about insurance payouts during pregnancy complications. What did you think at the time? I thought he was asking hypothetically, for a story or something. Brett talked about writing a thriller, but then he kept asking more specific questions about medical conditions that look natural, about how long it takes to date from various emergencies. Marcus's voice broke. My sister died 3 years ago, domestic violence. Her husband prevented her from getting medical help. I saw the same pattern with Brett, and I didn't say anything. I was a coward. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Brett threatened me. We'd done insider trading together years ago. He said if I talked, he'd make sure I took the fall for everything. I was scared, but then he looked directly at me. Then Brett asked me about Amber, about increasing her life insurance, and I realized he was going to do it again. I couldn't let another woman die. The defense tried to discredit him during cross-examination, suggesting his testimony was motivated by his own legal troubles. But Marcus held firm. I'd go to prison for 10 years if it meant keeping Brett away from other women. He showed me the playbook. First wife fell downstairs. Second wife overdosed. Emma was supposed to have a tragic pregnancy stroke. He's a predator, and I should have stopped him years ago. On day 12, Amber testified. 7 months pregnant, she walked slowly to the witness stand, hands protectively on her belly. Ms. Sinclair, what was your relationship with Brett Harrison? I thought he was my boyfriend. He told me his wife, his ex-wife, was mentally unstable, that they were separated and the divorce was almost final. Did you know Emma Harrison was pregnant? No, he never told me. I thought I was dating a man going through a difficult divorce, not a married man with a pregnant wife. What happened the night of August 15th? Amber took a shaky breath. It was my birthday. Brett threw me a party at the Pinnacle Room. It was beautiful, romantic, everything I thought I wanted. Did anything unusual happen that night? Brett's phone buzzed around 8:45. He checked it and his expression changed, just for a second. Then he showed me and said, Emma's being dramatic again. Did you ask if she was okay? Yes, he said she was fine, that she did this for attention, that she'd sent him something like 5 emergency texts that week and they were all fake. Amber wiped her eyes. I believed him. He was so convincing. When did you learn the truth? 2 weeks later, after Emma was hospitalized, I saw a news article about a pregnant woman who'd had a stroke. When I realized it was the same night as my party, she broke down. I realized what he'd done, that he'd used me as an alibi, that my birthday party was his cover for attempting to murder his wife. Why didn't you go to police immediately? I was pregnant, terrified. He told me if I said anything, he'd destroy me. that he had connections and money and I was nobody. She looked at Brett with something like hatred. But I can't. I can't let him do this to another woman. To your next wife, your next victim. Brett mouthed something at her. Even from across the courtroom, I could read his lips. You're dead. The judge banged her gavel. Mr. Harrison, one more outburst and you'll be removed from your own trial. On day 13, I testified. Walking to the witness stand was hard, physically and emotionally. My right leg still dragged slightly. My arm was braced. Every eye in the courtroom watched me struggle up the 2 steps. The prosecutor gave me time to settle. Then, Mrs. Harrison, can you tell the jury what happened on the night of August 15th? I spoke slowly, carefully, years of speech therapy making my words understandable but still slurred. I was folding baby clothes in the nursery. My right hand went numb. My face drooped. I knew I was having a stroke. What did you do? I tried to call 911, but I couldn't speak clearly, couldn't type my address. So I texted my husband, the man who promised to love me in sickness and in health. What did you text him? 911, stroke, can't talk, help. And what happened when you sent it? I saw the red receipt appear, 8:47 p.m. He saw it immediately. What did you think when you saw he'd read it? My voice cracked. I thought help was coming. I believed my husband would save me. I lay on the nursery floor telling my unborn baby that Daddy was coming, that we'd be okay. But he wasn't coming. No, he was drinking champagne with another woman. He left me there for 7 hours, and he deleted the evidence. The defense attorney's cross-examination was aggressive, designed to paint me as unreliable. Mrs. Harrison, you suffered a severe stroke. Your memory of that night could be unreliable, correct? Yes, I have memory problems now. So you can't be sure your husband read that text. I saw the read receipt, 8:47 p.m., clear as day. But read receipts can malfunction. Technology isn't perfect. The forensic evidence proves he read it and deleted it and went to a party. Your medical records show significant brain damage. You have trouble remembering recent events, don't you? Yes. Can you tell me what you had for breakfast this morning? I paused, couldn't remember. No. So your memory is unreliable. I looked at the jury, at the judge, at Rachel and my mother and Marcus in the gallery. Then I looked at Brett. I can't remember breakfast, but I remember lying on my nursery floor, unable to move, unable to speak. I remember my baby kicking inside me, getting weaker. I remember the sound of my husband's car leaving, the garage door closing. I remember wondering if I would die there, if my baby would die with me. My voice got stronger, clearer. I have brain damage, Mr. Crawford. I forget a lot of things, but I will never forget the 7 hours my husband left me to die. Some things you don't forget, even with a broken brain. The courtroom was silent. 2 jurors were openly crying. The defense attorney had no follow-up questions. After 3 weeks of testimony, both sides rested. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood. On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, how do you find? We find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged her gavel. Order. On the charge of insurance fraud? Guilty. On the charge of forgery? Guilty. On the charge of reckless endangerment? Guilty. Guilty, guilty, guilty on every single count. Brett stood up, face red, veins bulging in his neck. This is bullshit. She's lying. They're all lying. The bailiffs moved toward him. You stupid fucking jury. You believe a brain-damaged... Bailiff, remove the defendant now, Brett fought. Screamed. I should have finished you, Emma. I should have let you die. Full confession, in open court, recorded by every camera in the room. His lawyers looked ready to cry. They dragged him out, still screaming threats. The last thing I heard before the door closed, I'll kill you when I get out. The judge addressed the jury. Thank you for your service. Sentencing will be in 2 weeks. I sat in the witness gallery, Rachel's hand in mine, and let myself breathe for what felt like the first time in months. He was guilty, proven, undeniable. Sentencing day, 2 weeks after the verdict. Brett wore an orange jumpsuit, shackles on his wrists and ankles. He'd aged another decade in prison. Hollowed out, diminished, nothing like the powerful CEO he'd once been. Judge Patricia Williams took the bench. I'd learned she'd been a prosecutor before becoming a judge, specialized in domestic violence cases. She looked at Brett like something she'd scraped off her shoe. Before I impose sentence, I'll hear victim impact statements. I went first, walked to the microphone slowly, steadily. 4 months of physical therapy meant I barely limped now. My right arm had 50% function. Not perfect, but enough. Brett Harrison took my hand, my speech, my career, my sense of safety. He took 7 hours of my life I'll never get back. He nearly took my daughter before she even had a chance to live. I paused, looked at him directly, but he didn't take everything. He didn't take my strength, my will to fight, my love for my daughter. I'm standing here today, alive, because I'm stronger than he ever knew. I'm asking this court to make sure Brett Harrison never has the power to silence another woman again. Marcus went next, his testimony heavy with guilt and determination. Then Rachel, fierce and protective. Then my mother, apologizing for not believing me sooner. Finally, representatives from Jennifer and Michelle's families, Brett's previous wives, women I'd never met but whose stories had become forever intertwined with mine. Jennifer was my sister, a woman in her 50s said, voice breaking. When she fell down those stairs, I knew something was wrong. But Brett was so convincing, so devastated. We believed it was an accident. Now I know he murdered her, and he nearly got away with it. Michelle was my daughter, an older man said. She didn't commit suicide. She would never have left her unborn baby. But Brett made it look like she did. He's been killing women for years. Stop him. Judge Williams listened to every word. When the statements ended, she looked at Brett. Mr. Harrison, I've been on the bench for 28 years. I've never seen a case this calculated, this cold. You didn't kill your wife in a moment of passion. You orchestrated her death over months. You systematically prevented her from medical care. You increased her life insurance. You forged documents, and when the stroke you created finally happened, you read her desperate plea for help, and you deleted it. You left her on the floor for 7 hours. You went to a party. You drank champagne. You celebrated, while your wife died and your unborn daughter suffocated. The judge's voice went hard as steel. They survived in spite of you, not because of you. And the evidence presented suggests this was not your first attempt. 2 previous wives died under suspicious circumstances. While we cannot retry those cases here, the pattern is clear. This court will ensure you never perfect your method again. She opened the sentencing document. On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, I sentence you to life in prison, eligible for parole in 25 years. Brett's face went gray. On charges of insurance fraud, forgery, and filing false reports, 15 years to run concurrent with the attempted murder sentence. I am also permanently terminating your parental rights to Lily Harrison. You will have no contact with her ever. You will pay full restitution to Emma Harrison in the amount of $12 million to be collected from your seized assets. And I am formally recommending the District Attorney's Office reopen investigations into the deaths of Jennifer Harrison and Michelle Harrison. I believe there is sufficient evidence to pursue murder charges. Brett jumped to his feet. You can't do this. I'm innocent. This is Mr. Harrison. I can and I have. The jury found you guilty on all counts. The evidence was overwhelming. You are a danger to women. You are a danger to society, and you will spend the rest of your life behind bars. Bailiff, remove the defendant. Brett lost it completely, lunged toward the bench, screaming incoherently. It took 4 guards to restrain him. I'll fucking kill you when I get out. Emma, you hear me? You're dead. More confessions, more evidence. His lawyers had given up trying to control him. They dragged him out. The door slammed. Silence fell over the courtroom. I stood there, hands shaking, and realized it was over, really over. Brett would die in prison. Lily was safe. I was safe. Justice had been served. 6 months later, I was living in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. Not the penthouse, but it was mine. Bought with part of the restitution money. The rest went into a trust fund for Lily and to fund my nonprofit. Lily was 15 months old now, healthy and happy, babbling and taking her first steps. She had Brett's eyes, but my smile. Every time I looked at her, I saw hope instead of terror. My speech was 90% recovered. People who didn't know me before wouldn't notice anything wrong. My right hand had 60% function, enough to hold Lily, change diapers, type on my laptop. My leg only dragged when I was very tired. I wasn't the same person I'd been before the stroke. That Emma was gone. But the Emma who survived was stronger. Scarred, slower, but wiser. The Read the Receipt Foundation had helped over 15,000 domestic violence victims. We'd partnered with 47 hospitals across 12 states, training staff to recognize medical abuse. We'd created screening protocols that had already saved lives. Women called our hotline every day. My partner won't let me see a doctor. My spouse says I'm overreacting. Help me, please. We helped them, every single one. Brett's previous wife's cases had been reopened. Jennifer's death was ruled a homicide. Michelle's overdose was ruled a homicide. Brett was indicted on 2 additional murder charges from prison. He would never leave. Even if he somehow got parole at 73, the murder charges would keep him locked up until he died. Amber gave birth to a son, James. She and I had an odd relationship, both victims of the same man, both mothers of his children. We met for coffee once a month, mainly to plan for when Lily and James were old enough to know each other. "I'm sorry," she said at our first meeting. "I didn't know. I should have." "Stop," I told her. "He fooled everyone. That's what predators do." We agreed the children would know the truth when they were old enough, that their father was a bad man who hurt people, that they were not responsible for his actions, that they could be better than him. Marcus donated $3 million to the foundation and became a board member. He testified in the reopened murder investigations, providing evidence about Brett's patterns, his questions, his methodology. "I'll never forgive myself for not speaking up sooner," he told me. "But I'll spend the rest of my life making sure other women don't end up like Jennifer Mutt and Michelle Schwartz." Rachel wrote a book, When Rid Receipts Lie, Recognizing Tech-Enabled Abuse. It became a national bestseller. She traveled around the country training medical professionals and law enforcement on recognizing domestic abuse patterns. My mother moved to Brooklyn to help with Lily. She apologized at least once a week for not believing me sooner. "I should have trusted you," she said for the 1,000th time. "You believe me now," I told her. "That's what matters." 1 year after the sentencing, I made a choice I never thought I'd make. I went to visit Brett in prison. Everyone told me not to. "Why give him the satisfaction?" Rachel argued. "He doesn't deserve to see you." But I needed closure, needed to see him in a cage, needed to close this chapter of my life completely. The prison visiting room was exactly what you'd expect. Gray walls, metal tables, glass partitions. Brett shuffled in wearing orange, shackled, aged beyond his years. He'd lost at least 40 pounds. His hair was completely gray now, his eyes were dead. We picked up the phones that let us speak through the glass. "You came," he said. "I came. Wife home to see what a monster looks like behind bars." Long silence, then, "I loved you, I really did." "No, you love control. There's a difference. If you'd just been less suspicious, less difficult, less alive," I finished for him. He flinched. "You wanted me dead," I said flatly. "Admit it." Another long pause. Then quietly, "Yes." "Why?" "I needed the money. The company was failing. I had debts. Amber was pregnant. You were the easy solution. You were supposed to just go quietly." "But I didn't." "No." He looked at me through the glass. "You didn't." He tried one last manipulation. "Emma, look, 25 years. Lily will be 25. Don't you think she deserves to know her father? She knows her father. She knows he's a bad man who hurt people, who tried to hurt Mama. Age-appropriate truth. Therapist approved. You're poisoning her against me. I'm protecting her from you. There's a difference." "What about James, Amber's boy, my son? Are you going to poison him against me too?" "James will know the truth too, when he's old enough." Both kids will know their father chose murder over love. That's on you, not me. I stood to leave. Brett pressed his palm against the glass. Wait, please. Can I at least see a picture of Lily? I pulled out my phone and showed him through the glass. Lily at the playground, laughing, reaching for the ski. Healthy, happy, alive. Brett's eyes filled with tears. He reached toward the image. I pulled the phone back. You'll never touch her, never hold her, never hear her call you daddy. She'll grow up knowing her father tried to kill her before she was born. And she'll grow up knowing her mama fought like hell to save her. I stood up. You took 7 hours of my life, Brett. I'm taking 25 years of yours. But here's the difference. I'm taking them legally, justly. You'll rot in here knowing you lost everything. Your money, your freedom, your reputation, your children. And I'll be out there raising our daughter, living my life. Broken but alive, scarred but free. You wanted me dead and silent. Instead, I'm alive, and I won't shut up. I'm speaking at colleges, hospitals, conferences, telling our story. Your name will be synonymous with domestic violence for decades. I hung up the phone, walked to the door, and turned back one last time. Thank you, Brett, for making me the survivor story of the century. I left, didn't look back. 3 years post-stroke, I stood on a stage at a medical conference, speaking to 2,000 healthcare professionals. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I say what almost kills you shows you who you really are and who you really love. On the screen behind me, photos of Lily, Rachel, my mother, Marcus, my support system, my family. If your partner prevents medical care, that's abuse. If they make you doubt your symptoms, that's gaslighting. If they isolate you from doctors, that's control. Trust yourself, trust your body. In the audience, I saw women nodding, taking notes, some crying. This message was saving lives. My near death was helping others survive. After the speech, a young woman approached me. Mrs. Harrison, I just wanted to thank you. Last month, my boyfriend tried to talk me out of going to the ER when I had chest pains. I remembered your story. I went anyway. Turns out I was having a heart attack. I'm 28. The doctor said if I'd waited another hour, I would have died. Thank you for saving my life. I hugged her with my good arm. Thank you for trusting yourself. That night, home in my Brooklyn apartment, I sat in the rocking chair, the same one from the hospital, now in Lily's room, and watched my daughter sleep. She was 4 years old now, brilliant, curious, fearless. She knew her father was in prison. She knew he'd made very bad choices. She knew Mama had a sleepy hand and talked slow and special because of something bad that happened before she was born. But she also knew she was loved, safe, protected. I touched my right hand, still weak, still limited, but enough. Enough to hold my daughter. Enough to type my advocacy work. Enough to live. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Drinks tomorrow? I want to hear about the conference. I smiled and typed back with my left hand. Absolutely. Love you. Love you too, survivor. I looked at myself in the mirror across the room. The right side of my face still drooped slightly when I smiled. My speech still had a slight slur when I was tired. My hands still shook sometimes. I was scarred, broken in ways that would never fully heal. But I was alive. I'd died for 7 hours on a nursery floor, and then I'd come back to life, and I'd chosen to make that life matter. The rad receipt didn't lie. Brett saw my text. He chose champagne over saving me. But I survived anyway, and that survival meant something. It meant 15,000 women getting help. It meant hospitals changing their protocols. It meant Jennifer and Michelle's families getting justice. It meant Lily and James growing up knowing they could be better than their father. I stood up from the rocking chair, turned off Lily's light, and went to my own room. Tomorrow, I'd speak at another hospital, train more staff, help more women, save more lives. But tonight, I'd sleep peacefully in my small apartment, my daughter safe in the next room, my ex-husband rotting in prison where he belonged. I'd lost my hand, my speech, my career, my marriage. But I'd gained my life, my daughter's life, my voice, and I'd use that voice for the rest of my days. Some things you don't forget. Even with a broken brain, I died for 7 hours, but I came back, and I chose life. Every single day, I choose life.